When you sleep, your body rests. But your mind, sometimes, it wakes up too early. That's when the shadows start whispering. I've seen it happen. To the boy who thought the dark was empty. To the woman who swore the thing on her chest was just a dream. They couldn't move. Couldn't scream. They were trapped inside their own body. But the worst part, they weren't alone, asterisk. Let me tell you about 5 of them, and why they never sleep the same again. Story 1, The Man in the Corner. There was a boy named Ethan. He wasn't afraid of the dark. Not until the night it looked back at him. It was summer. His windows were open, and the soft hum of the fan was lulling him to sleep. But that night, something felt wrong. Ethan woke up, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. He tried to sit up. He couldn't. Tried to move his fingers. Nothing. His chest was heavy, like something was pressing down, even though nothing was there. That's when he noticed it. In the corner of his room, a man was standing. Not moving. Not blinking. Just there. Tall, too thin, with shoulders that slumped like he didn't belong in his own skin. Ethan wanted to scream, but all he could do was watch. Frozen. The man started to smile. It wasn't right. Like his face had to be reminded how to stretch that way. And then, slowly, he began to walk. Each step was wrong, like his legs had forgotten how knees worked. Click. 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 Ethan's heart pounded so loud, he thought it would burst through his chest. But no one came. No one ever does in those moments. The man leaned over his bed, face inches from Ethan's. His breath was cold, even in the thick summer heat. And then, the man whispered, "You let me in." Ethan's eyes slammed shut. He told himself, "It's just a dream, it's just a dream." But the cold breath stayed. He woke up the next morning, drenched in sweat, heart racing. The room was empty. But for nights after that, Ethan never slept facing the corner again. Story 2, The Woman Who Hums. There's a girl I once knew. Her name was Claire. She loved music, humming to herself while drawing or reading. But one night, the humming didn't come from her. It started softly. A tune she didn't recognize. Faint, but getting closer. Claire was lying in bed, phone in hand, scrolling herself to sleep. She blinked, and suddenly, she couldn't move. Paralyzed. Her fingers still holding the phone, but frozen stiff. The humming continued. It was coming from inside the room now. But no one was there. Her eyes darted towards the closet. The door wasn't closed anymore. A sliver of darkness peeked through. And from that gap, a figure emerged. A woman. Or something that used to be one. Her hair was matted, hanging over a face that didn't seem to fit on her head. Her limbs were all wrong. Too long. Like someone had pulled her out of shape and then forgot to fix her. But the worst part was her smile. It didn't match the song. The humming was soft, but her grin stretched ear to ear, cracked and bleeding. Claire wanted to scream, to thrash, to run. But her body was trapped. Only her eyes could follow the woman's slow, twisted movements. The woman crawled up the side of the bed, her face just inches away. And as the humming got louder, Claire felt a hand, icy cold, press against her throat. No, wait. Just a chilling touch. Like a reminder, I'm real. And then, she stopped. The woman's head tilted, as if listening for something. The humming faded. The woman slithered back into the closet. Claire's body snapped awake. She gasped, bolting upright, clutching her throat. No marks. No scratches. But the closet door was still ajar. And from its shadows, she heard a soft, lingering hum, like a music box slowly winding down. Story 3, The Man in the Hallway. Asterisk, there's a boy I knew once. His name was Daniel. He lived in an old apartment building where the walls were thin, and the nights were never quiet. Daniel had this habit. Every night before bed, he'd peek down the hallway to make sure the front door was locked. You know, just one of those things that makes you feel safe. But one night, he saw something. It was around 2 a.m. The building was dead silent. But as Daniel opened his bedroom door, a cold draft rushed past him. And there, standing at the very end of the hallway, was a man. He wasn't facing Daniel. He was staring at the wall, motionless. His back hunched, like the air itself was too heavy to breathe. Daniel froze. His heart was thudding, but his body wouldn't move. And then, the man turned his head. But not like you or I would. It was wrong. Like his neck didn't understand how bones work. His face was pale, stretched, and the eyes. They weren't looking at Daniel. They were looking through him. Daniel tried to step back into his room, but his body was no longer his. Sleep paralysis. But he wasn't in bed. He was trapped, standing in that hallway. The man began walking. Not towards Daniel, but towards the walls. As if the hallway was endless. His feet dragged. Scrape, scrape, scrape. And with every step, the air got colder. The lights began to flicker. Daniel's breath fogged in front of him, but he still couldn't move. When the man reached halfway, he stopped. Slowly, he raised his hand and pointed directly at Daniel. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just a horrible, choking gasp. Suddenly, Daniel's body collapsed backwards, crashing onto his bedroom floor. He was free. But when he scrambled to his feet and slammed the door shut, he swore. Just before the door clicked, he heard a whisper. "You shouldn't have seen me." Daniel never checked the hallway at night again. Story 4: The Girl Who Woke Up Wrong. Location: Willow Creek, Oregon, 2007. Asterisk, this next story happened in a small, sleepy town called Willow Creek. It's the kind of place where the fog feels heavier, like it knows secrets it refuses to share. There was a girl named Emily, 15 years old. Quiet, always with a book in her hand. She lived with her parents in a tiny one-story house right on the edge of the woods. The kind of woods that feels alive, even when it's still. Emily's room was small, but cozy. Fairy lights strung around the window, a collection of worn-out horror novels on her shelf. At night, the wind would whistle through the cracks in her old window frame. She liked that sound. It was familiar, comforting. Until one night, it wasn't. It was early October. Cold, but not yet winter. Emily went to sleep like normal. But when she opened her eyes in the middle of the night, something was wrong. She was awake. But her body wasn't. She couldn't move. Couldn't even blink. Only her eyes darted wildly around the room. At first, she thought it was just a bad dream. But then she noticed. The shadows weren't right. You know how shadows behave. They cling to walls, follow the shape of things. But not this one. In the corner of her ceiling, there was a shadow that didn't belong. It was huddled up, breathing. You could see it expand and deflate, like lungs that had been waiting a long time. Emily's breath hitched. She wanted to scream, but all she could do was watch. The shadow began to unfold itself. Limbs, long and fragile, peeling off the ceiling like wet paper. It crept down the wall, inch by inch, until it hovered right above her bed. Then, it whispered her name. Not out loud, but inside her head. Emily. Her heart pounded, but her body stayed paralyzed. The shadow leaned in closer, its face now inches from hers. It didn't have eyes, but she could feel it staring. And then it said something that made her blood run cold. You're not supposed to be awake yet. The lights in her room flickered once. And Emily's body jolted. She shot up, gasping, drenched in sweat. The shadow was gone. The room was exactly as it should be. But the worst part, when she checked her clock, it was only 12:01 a.m. She had only been asleep for a minute. Emily never slept with the lights off again. And sometimes, even now, she swears she sees that same shadow, clinging to the corner of every room she enters. Story 5, The Man in the Doorway. Location, Albany, New York, winter, 2014. Asterisk, the last story for tonight happened in a small apartment in Albany. A man named Victor lived there. He was 28. Worked late shifts at a call center. Lived alone. Victor wasn't the kind of person who believed in the paranormal. He was logical, straightforward. But logic doesn't matter when your own body betrays you. It was a bitter January night. Snow piled up against the windows. The wind outside howled like it was angry at the world. Victor had just come home after a 12-hour shift. Exhausted, he flopped onto his bed, still in his work clothes, and passed out. He didn't expect to wake up an hour later, completely frozen. His eyes snapped open. But his body was a corpse. He couldn't move a finger. At first, he panicked, thinking it was a stroke or seizure. But then, he noticed something. The bedroom door, which he always locked, was wide open. He could see into the hallway. It was dark, but not empty. A man stood there. Victor's heart tried to leap out of his chest. But he was trapped inside his own skin. The man was tall, but slouched. He wore a tattered coat. His face wasn't right. It looked melted, as if someone had taken a human face and pressed it against a hot stove. One eye dangled lower than the other, swaying ever so slightly as he moved. And then he smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It stretched, way too far. Like his skin was made of rubber. Victor could hear his own pulse in his ears, hammering. The man in the doorway didn't move at first. He just watched. But then, step by step, he started walking toward the bed. Slow. Deliberate. The floor creaked with every step. But Victor couldn't do anything. He couldn't scream. Couldn't even close his eyes. When the man was close enough to touch him, he stopped, bent down, and whispered, "You're awake now, good." And with that, Victor's body jolted. He gasped for air, shooting upright. The room was empty. The door was shut, locked. But the creaking of footsteps, it didn't stop. It moved away, down the hall, fading into the walls. Victor never slept without a chair jammed under his doorknob again. But that wasn't the scariest part. The scariest part was what he found 2 days later. When he checked his phone, he found a photo. A blurry, grainy photo, taken from the foot of his bed, while he was sleeping. And that's all I'll tell you for tonight. But these stories, they don't end here. The boy in Texas still hears knocking on his window. Mia's drawings, she's still making them. But now, she draws things that haven't happened yet. Victor, he moved out of that apartment. But some things, once they find you, don't need a door to get back in. You see, the rules of the world aren't what you think. You can lock your doors. You can keep the lights on. But when you sleep, when you're trapped inside your own mind, that's when they visit. And maybe, just maybe, tonight will be your turn. But don't worry. I'll be here. Watching. Listening. Waiting for your story.